All right, in today's episode, we are talking about what you can do if you are the relative or friend or loved one of someone who has cancer. It's going to be a great episode. Check it out in 5 seconds.
Welcome to the Healthy Reasonings podcast with Dr. Andre. You are now listening to your number one source for clear, unfiltered conversations about your health and wellness. Join us every Tuesday for success stories, educational topics, and interviews with wellness experts from around the world. You can listen to this podcast on your computer, phone, or any other electronic device that streams podcasts, or download each episode and listen to it on the go. Let's get started with today's episode.
All right, so I wanted to shout out someone on Spotify. I don't know how to pronounce that username. It was something like DSO Kausau or something like that. You know who you are. And that person sent me a really, really encouraging comment about the last episode. And one of the things that they highlighted was the fact that I'm sharing the information without any fear. That's exactly what we do here. Welcome to the Healthy Reasonings podcast. My name is Dr. Andre Williams, and I'm an integrative oncologist living in Jamaica, West Indies. And on this podcast, we share clear, unfiltered information about your health and wellness, which makes us the number one podcast for that purpose. However, if you are listening to this podcast, I want you to know that it's not intended to be specific advice for your personal medical issue. If you need specific information about your own health specifically, please seek the care of a healthcare practitioner near you or one that you trust. Today's episode probably doesn't need the disclaimer though, because we're talking about part of the cancer journey that's not very often discussed. Now, granted, there are specific navigation groups, patient navigation groups that are dedicated to something like this. But largely, as an oncologist myself, much of what I'm going to share is just based on years of observation. I've been doing cancer care since 2006. This episode is being recorded in 2025, so that's almost 19 years of cancer care, interacting with patients diagnosed with cancer, but more importantly, interacting with patients' relatives and friends. And that is the crux of today's episode: what to do when your friend, family member, or loved one has cancer. Now, the first thing to establish, as always, is that I believe personally that cancer can be healed. And there's lots of precedent to suggest that that is the case, regardless of the treatment option that you have a preference for or that you think is the right way. The fact is that cancer can be healed, and that has to be the foundation of our approach whenever we're dealing with cancer. And if we're going to talk about helping a loved one or friend who has been diagnosed with cancer, the first thing to establish is that the second thing really is cancer is uniformly at the moment scary for both the patient and for their extended circle, whether family, friend, loved one, children, mother, whatever the case may be. And in a way, it's no less scary for the doctor because we're humans at the end of the day. And scary is probably a strong word, but it's no less shocking and traumatic is probably the best word. So everybody is kind of impacted when the diagnosis is made. We're human, and nobody wants to see someone go through suffering. So that's the first thing to understand, is that if you are feeling overwhelmed and very emotional when you hear the news about a patient who has been diagnosed who is close to you. It's okay for you to feel emotional. And in a very real way, it's important for you as a friend or a loved one to go through the process of assessing your own emotions before necessarily speaking to the person who has been diagnosed. Similarly, for me as a doctor, I have to process my own emotions before delivering the news to the patient or before designing their treatment program. I have to make sure that I myself am emotionally stable so that my decisions on behalf of the patient or alongside the patient are not being influenced in one way or another by how I feel about the patient. So the emotional part of things is usually the hardest because, generally speaking, negative emotions cloud our judgment. And as you could have imagined, the patient themselves is going through a maelstrom, a whirlwind of emotions on their side. And depending on the type of personality they have, it may be very evident that they're struggling, or it may not be so evident. But the first thing is for me as a doctor, the patient who has been diagnosed, and you as a friend or a loved one or a family member to stop, take a deep breath, and come to grips with the fact that this diagnosis has been made. And then that means that for the next couple of days and beyond, we're going to have to be making some difficult decisions. All right, there's no way around this. Difficult decisions come with the territory. Good. So assuming that, to a lesser or greater degree, you have had the ability to kind of stop and take a deep breath and assess, okay, my cousin or my father or my mom has been diagnosed. You've allowed the emotions to kind of flow over you for a little bit. And now you know that your responsibility is now to the patient, the loved one, the family member, or the friend. You now have to make yourself available to this person to help them. And there are three main areas of support that patients diagnosed with cancer invariably are going to need. I've seen it over and over again. It's not easy to to navigate this part of it, but if you really want to care for this person, this is what you're gonna have to do. So we're gonna list the three things. The first one is they're gonna need emotional help. We're gonna elaborate on each of these in a little bit. They're going to need financial help invariably, one way or another. And they're going to need very practical help. That's the last thing, very practical help. Let's pause here to do a quick sponsorship message, and then we'll come back and jump into the details of what each of these things look like. Here we go.
In a world that moves too fast, it's easy to lose touch with what truly matters, your well-being. At Teshuva Wellness, we believe in a return to balance, to healing, to your best self. Our holistic approaches nurture not just your body, but also your soul. Whether you're seeking peace, energy, or a deeper connection, we're here to guide you every step of the way. Our medical experts specialize in holistic treatments for chronic diseases, ranging from autoimmune illnesses to cancer. Our treatments are safe, non-toxic, and effective. Because at Teshuva Wellness, your journey to wellness is our greatest commitment. Visit our website today at teshuvawellnessja.com or call 1-876-787-8197. That's 1-876-787-8197. Teshuva Wellness. Return to health. Return to your best self.
Okay, we're back. And we are talking about the first one now, which is emotional help. Now, I appreciate, and Dee Whitaker, one of our popular guests on this podcast, has taught us that there are 9 Enneagram types or 9 personality types. And that makes things complicated when you're trying to figure out how to best provide emotional help for your friend, family member, or a loved one. Yeah, you just really don't know what the best thing to do is, but here's the thing. There are ways to find out. Now, here's the first thing that you can do is, depending on how close you are to the person, so let's say it's an immediate family member who you have regular access to. Provided you are the person you suspect they want to hear from the most, the first thing you need to do is to make that connection with them. And sometimes, to start the conversation, the best thing to do is just simply ask, how can I be of help? How can I help you? Don't ask how you're feeling, because the truth is they probably don't really know how to put it into words. Don't ask, how did this happen? Don't ask any of the questions that you would think logically you should ask. Forget that. Your first priority is to figure out how you can help this person. And the truth is, most times as family members or loved ones of the patient, you really feel the need to help, and being able to help makes you better able to process the emotions anyway. So you want to, as quickly as possible, figure out how you can help. And emotionally, sometimes the person may need simply to just talk. Maybe not about the diagnosis, or maybe they actually don't want to talk. They just want you to call or come and sit with them and just be. A very good example of this is in the Bible. I shared this on a recent call that I was on. In Job, where his friends literally just sat with him for days before saying anything. And sometimes, depending on the relationship you share with that person, you may want to simply let them know that you're there. And maybe that's all they need at that time. This is not the time to start asking what stage the cancer is, what treatment options are being advised, and so on and so forth. All of that is going to be discussed anyway. But if the person is going to make those decisions, they need to be able to be emotionally clear, and you can help. So emotionally, you want to steer clear from asking them what they're feeling, asking them specifics about the cancer, but you want to find out what they need. They may need a shoulder to cry on. They may need somebody to vent to. They may just need somebody to hear them repeat over and over what they're going through and process with them without offering advice. Or they may need you to just be there. Yeah, some people, I've met several patients who just want their relatives to be in the house. And depending on how convenient that is for you, you should try to make it happen. Try not to spread their story to other people, assuming that the more support, the better. That generally I've found is not really the case. Patients with cancer, in my experience, don't want a whole lot of emotional support. They usually have 1 or 2 specific people whom they want to support them emotionally. However, where the additional support comes in is with the second 2 options, which are financial support and practical support. So let's talk about financial support. Depending on where the patient is in their journey with this diagnosis, they may have already spent their life savings just in being evaluated, the imaging studies, the biopsies, maybe the surgery, whatever the case may be, to formally make this diagnosis, may have already created a big dent in their finances. And so here's where, if you're able, you may be able to help by saying, hey, how can I help financially? What can I do to make it easier for you to, for example, attend your appointments, to make the journey to the hospital, maybe even to pay for some of the testing that needs to be done, to assist with payment for the surgery or whatever is to come, the type of treatment that is to come. And also, how can I help to pay for some of the medications? Also, how can I help you to pay for your everyday expenses related to the home or whatever that may not be being met because you are attending to your health at this very critical time? So if you have financial means and you want to offer financial help, those are some really good ways to assist. But you have to be careful, obviously, because some people are pretty sensitive about receiving financial help. And again, I've seen so many variants on this. I've seen people start GoFundMes. You really want to ask the person first if they want a GoFundMe. And you may want to try and ask them how they would want to be assisted financially. If it's really a critical situation and you know that this patient is somebody who is unlikely to refuse help no matter how necessary it is, then you may just have to be super stealthy and create funding opportunities for them anyway, but try to avoid a public exposure of what they're going through. If at all possible, you could find a few friends who you know have the means and pool together the funds in a private way, then go to the person and say, hey, we hear you're going through something. We put some stuff in your account, use it as you see fit. Which brings me to the practical things that you can do to help. And this is wide ranging. So first of all, if you want to do practical things to help, again, make sure that you're somebody who this patient would want to receive help from. If your help is not desired, if your help is not requested, your help may actually complicate matters. And you may very well be, and this is going to be a tough one, you may very well be a contributor to the person's previous emotional stress or current emotional stress. And that's just the raw facts. It may very well be that one of the reasons why they became ill was because of your relationship. So you want to be sure that your relationship with them is one in which they would love to have that open conversation with you about what they practically need. Now, if it is, then you're going to have the conversation coming up that I'm going to talk to you about. But if it's not, then you want to find someone else, another friend, another family member, not the person specifically, and call them or reach out to them and say, hey, is there any practical thing I can do to help whomsoever, whatever the patient's name is, at this time? I don't want to call them directly because I know our relationship wasn't that good or we're not that close, but I still want to help, and I really want to know what practical things I can do. Now, here are some practical things. This person may need assistance going to and from their appointments for treatment. That's a very helpful. Immediately that makes things so much easier, because many times the person is unable to drive themselves, or their appointments may be far away or at a time that's not convenient for most people, and they may need help getting to and from, and they may need to go to the appointment, but sometimes the treatment takes longer than expected, and so whoever is going to carry them may need to be flexible enough to carry them back home afterwards. And it would be nice to have a car that allows them to lie flat if necessary. So you don't want to go for them on a motorbike, for example, or a bicycle. You want to make sure that they're covered from the elements and that if they need to recline their seat or maybe even lie in the back seat, then that's an option. The next thing is, what is this person doing for food? And if you're a healthy reasoner, you will know that healthy reasoners don't just eat anything and call it food, especially, God forbid, if a healthy reasoner were to develop cancer or a serious illness. The diet that we recommend is usually quite clean. I'll just leave it at clean. And as a result of that, it's going to require, a person may probably need assistance going to the grocery store or wherever these particular food types are available. And again, given their schedule, given their physical status, whether they're able to get out of bed or whatever the case may be, they may not be able to go back and forth from the grocery store. And so that's another piece of help that you can offer right away. Number 3, does this person have young children or some other family member that they're responsible for who may need also to be transported around? For example, if the children need to go to school, who is going to carry them? It may be that you may be able to help in that way. If you're a trusted family member or friend, you may be able to assist with carrying the children to and from school. That's one less thing for them to think about. And the other tricky one is this, is when the patient has a doctor's appointment or treatment appointment, invariably it comes with a lot of stress, whether spoken or otherwise. And as a result of that, when the person goes to the doctor's appointment, many times they are unable to recall what was said by the doctor or medical professional. If you are a trusted friend or family member, you could offer to go with them to the appointments and take notes, or go with them to the appointments and just sit there so that they can know that there's somebody there with them, and that may make them a little bit more rested and better able to absorb the information. I've had situations in which I'm trying to give somebody good news about their progress or good news about their diagnosis, but because of their heightened state of arousal or just being very stressed, they're unable to appreciate that I'm actually giving them good news. And it's only when a relative or family member who was there is able to sit with them and say, actually, no, what the doctor said was this. And it's actually a good sign. So being there with them. Another practical way that you can help this person is, this one is going to be interesting. You can actually become this person's shield, meaning if this person is a very popular person or is somebody who meant or means a lot to the circle of friends or family, then what likely is going to happen is everybody is going to want to call, let's say, Susie. Everybody is going to want to call Susie because everybody wants to have that conversation with her. And Susie doesn't need that right now. Susie needs probably just a few people around her, as we discussed earlier, for the emotional part. And Susie doesn't necessarily need to be explaining herself over and over to every single person who calls. So imagine if you offered to monitor her phone for her, and to screen the calls, and to kind of, if you know who she might actually want to talk to, then you could say, hey, let me arrange for you to talk to Susie a little bit later. Right now she's resting, or right now she's just processing, or right now she's actually in treatment and she can't speak. Take that load off the person so they don't have to keep answering the phone over and over and over, repeating the same story and perhaps traumatizing themselves all over again. I know that these are probably really good tips so far, and I think I'm going to take a quick break just for some more sponsorship information, and then we're going to come back and close out with a few stories. You know, I love stories. Stories are powerful. I'll be right back.
Healthy Reasoners. You asked and we listened. After enjoying today's episode, you can now send Dr. Andre your comments via WhatsApp. That's right, WhatsApp your comments or voice messages to us at 1-876-405-7831. In fact, take a moment to send us a WhatsApp right now. If it's really good, Dr. Andre will read it in the next episode. Once again, that's 1-876-405-7831. Send us your message now. We can't wait to hear from you.
All right, we're back. And the first story I'm going to tell is I remember, this is a tough one. I remember early in my career, well, probably midway through my career, I've been working in cancer care for about 9 years. And I had a gentleman who was very, very ill. And for some reason, even though he was very ill, the treatment options that he had available to him were supposed to work. You know, for all intents and purposes, he was being offered the best care. Now, he had a family member who was a medical professional, and that person was very well connected. And so as a result of that, whilst I was helping to manage his care, even I myself felt privileged to be able to be a part of Zoom conversations with some of the top doctors in other countries across the world, because they were being engaged to give advice about this gentleman's care. And you know, I could have taken it as a slight and said, hey, don't you think I'm good enough? Why do you need to be consulting so many other people? But no, here's my opportunity to learn and network with some of these people who I only read about in journals. So I seized the opportunity, and whilst caring for him, I took the opportunity to meet these people and to hear what they thought they could add to his care, and learn some really good things about what was happening at some of the top institutions in the world. So that was a good feeling, you know, to be able to hear what they thought and to apply it for my patient. And despite all of this, 3 months passed, no improvement. 4 months passed, no improvement. In fact, I could visibly see that, separate and apart from the patient's blood results and imaging and so on, you could just see that he was getting worse. And every time we had a Zoom meeting with the experts, you know, his family member was present on the call, and we all spoke about what we thought we should do to adjust, and started making plans at one point for him to go overseas, if I recall well. And something was bothering me about this person, but I just couldn't put my finger on it. As a matter of fact, I'm not going to share what type of cancer it was, but it was one of the cancers that has a strong, in my experience, a strong emotional contributor. And I said, one day he told me he wanted to speak to me, and he wanted to speak to me alone. I said, okay, sure, no problem, let's do this. And so he asked the family to leave. Well, I made an excuse for them to leave, and I sat with him, and he said, Doc, there's something I need to share with you. And I said, well, I figured you called me to meet with you alone. And he said, Doc, I'm so emotionally just drained by all of these meetings with all these experts. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, I'm only doing it because my family member has, you know, all of this influence, and she's arranging this for me. But the truth is, I just wish you'd leave me alone. And I tremble every time I think of having to speak with her again, with her recommending something else. And yet I can't get to make any decisions on my own. I can't get to do what I want to do, but part of me wishes I could just tell her a piece of my mind, tell her to leave me alone and get involved in my own care. I don't want all these people interfering with my treatment. I actually just want to be treated the way how I want to be treated, not what they want. But I'm so afraid to say it. And healthy reasoners, that was when I realized that this gentleman was getting all the top treatments available and not getting better for the obvious reasons that we all know, which is that the root of his illness was emotional, and it probably was rooted in this broken relation or this dysfunctional relationship he had with his sister, who essentially was imposing her will on his disease and on his journey instead of allowing him to feel like he could participate on his own. And sad to say, this gentleman one day just unexplainably just went into a coma, which made no sense for the type of illness he had. But he just went into a coma, and that was that. Never woke up. And it left a scar on me, as you can tell, but it also opened my mind to just how powerful the emotions are, of course. I preach that like Paul all the time, but also how critical it is for the family to make the right kind of help, provide the right kind of help when this patient is sick. Otherwise, in this case, the family actually made this gentleman worse. It sounds hard to say, but it's very, very true. And let me try and find a second story here. Another powerful story is I remember caring for another elderly gentleman who I want to tell this story correctly, so I'll speed it up. Essentially, he wanted me to sit with him, and I said, fine, that's why I'm here anyway. And he said, no, I need you to sit with me alone with my family, not here. This is after I'd already met with him and the family. We had discussed what we wanted to do for him, and we discussed everything possible that could be made available to him. His family was more than capable of assisting him, and so we had already discussed all of that. And he said, can I talk with the doc? You guys step outside for a little bit. And and he said, come over to the bedside, doc. So I came over, and his statement just rocked my world. He said, doc, I need you to know that I've not always been a good boy. And I thought to myself, sir, you're in your 80s. I don't really understand where you're going with this. But he said, yeah, I haven't been a good boy, and I need to tell somebody some things, and I don't know who else to tell but you. And he said, okay, what's going on here? And he said, doc, I have another family, and I have been very, very unfaithful for most of my marriage, and it just eats me up inside, and I just wanted to tell somebody. I can't tell my wife, I can't tell whoever else, but I just wanted to confess my sin to somebody. And in my mind, I'm thinking, sir, you need a priest maybe, or you need to talk to God. But I figured, hey, a part of my faith is that I am a priest. I am. That's a joke that only some healthy reasoners will get. And so I said, sure, tell me what you need to tell me. And he proceeded to tell me a list of things that he thought he needed to confess. And I still don't quite know why he thought I was the right person. And the truth is that a few days after that, he passed away. But I wonder if he had any friends or family members with that level of access to him that would have enabled him to get that burden off his chest. Just imagine if he hadn't met me in time. Just imagine if he hadn't had the opportunity to sit with me one-on-one. So these are unspoken emotional needs that patients with cancer have. And many times they don't quite realize that they have the need until random moments when they just suddenly comes pouring out, or something causes them to realize that they have this need, and so they're gonna share it. You can be that person for them at that time. But let me tell you, the number one mistake that people make when caring for a family member or a loved one or a friend is we become bullies. So if we think that chemotherapy is the best treatment, or maybe we think that natural food is the best treatment, herbs are the best treatment, maybe we think that prayer is the best treatment, it's fine for us as the doctor or the family member or the friend to have our opinions, but it's absolutely unfair to impose our preferences on the patient. And for every time that I've seen that happen, it has ended in disaster. So the take-home points today: if you're the friend or loved one or family member of somebody who has cancer, the first thing you need to do is to get your own emotions in check. That's one. Two, appreciate the fact that this patient is going to have emotional, financial, and practical needs, and figure out what these could be and whether you are the best person to offer that kind of support. It may be that you're not the person to offer emotional support, but you're the person to offer financial. It may be that you're not able to offer financial support, but maybe what this person needs most is your emotional support. And maybe based on your job requirements, responsibilities, or your own personal responsibilities, you may only be able to offer practical help in some way. Paying the bills online, or picking up the groceries, or, sitting downstairs while the person sleeps. One of the things I wanted to mention, of course, is one that comes up all the time, which is if this person is incapacitated, you may need to offer practical care of the patient. So you may need to assist them with bathing. You may need to assist them with getting to the bathroom. You may need to assist them with changing their clothes, or changing their diapers, or changing whatever tubes are attached to them. It's very important to figure out where you fit into the whole circle of needs. Maybe you don't. Maybe the best thing you can do is to stay outside the circle and pray, or meet with some of the other people who are in the circle and say, hey, I'm available if you guys need me. If I can be of assistance, please let me know how. But the last thing I need as a doctor, and it happens a lot, is to have, I'm caring for Susie, and Susie has 7 sisters. That's a recipe for disaster. So what we end up doing is saying, Susie, please choose one of your sisters who will be the point of contact between the doctor and the rest of the family, or between you and the rest of the family. Because unless these 7 sisters understand what I've just shared, what's going to happen is everybody is going to want to try and meet emotional needs. Everybody maybe is going to want to assist with financial needs, although that's kind of not usually what happens. And everybody is going to want to be practically involved. And the truth is, everybody is going to want to recommend what they think is best, and that does not work. So in summary, if you guys want to be of assistance to your loved one or family member or friend, maybe you probably need to watch this video and share it with somebody else so that everybody is more sensitized to what is actually needed. I welcome comments as always. You guys know how to get in touch with me. You know how to WhatsApp me. I also must mention, I guess, that I offer one-on-one consultations via Zoom. The information should be somewhere in the show notes. If you are watching this and you liked it, please show your like on YouTube or whatever other platform you're on. I want you to subscribe. I want you to follow, and I want you to share this video to anybody at all you think could need it. You don't necessarily know somebody who has developed cancer, but you may know somebody who knows somebody who has cancer. And this advice is not for the patient, it's for them. So share this video with somebody right now before you forget. It's been a blast sharing with you guys once again, and I look forward to the next episode on the Healthy Reasonings podcast. Love you all.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Healthy Reasonings podcast. Remember to subscribe to this podcast so you can be updated as soon as new episodes are ready. If you have a question, send us a voice note on WhatsApp or a WhatsApp message. The WhatsApp number is 1-876-405-7831. For more information or to become a sponsor, please email wellnessdocjamaica@gmail.com. See you soon.